exciting music news coming to keep it right now. Lady Gaga announced a new album.
And we knew it was coming, and there were rumors that it would in fact be called Harlequin, which is, where the words Harley Quinn come from, the character she's playing in the upcoming Joker musical extravaganza. Or not. There's not music in it, actually, or whatever the PR is. But we are getting a new album from her. And the vibe so far is giving I'm Breathless music from and inspired by the film Dick Tracy, or Prince on the Batman soundtrack. There's lots of variability about what this project could mean for her career. It could mean nothing, could be a spicy little something in the middle of it. I can't tell how much I'm looking forward to it yet, though.
I do not think Prince or Stephen Sondheim are involved.
I think she probably asked nicely at the Crystal Ball for them to join her.
Knowing her, she probably did.
Yeah, right. No, I'm saying.
I went to their crypts. I asked for help. No, but that is all to distract us from the fact that we are here to discuss Katy Perry's new album, 143, which came out, and honestly, I don't hate it.
I feel like I don't hate it either. It's not like I'm anxiously putting on these tracks again, but I feel like the point of this album, which is low on huge pop hooks, it just doesn't compare to some of the other songs in her career that were like instant classics. But the album is called 143, which is beeper pager slang for I love you. And I feel like the vibe of the album is like light sentimentality with a pop beat behind it. Like, it's not going for pretension or wild swings that don't work out. So for it to be like the lowest rated album on Metacritic since 2011, as I saw one tweet say about it, feels a bit extreme to me. That said, it's not essential either. So I can see being dismissive of the album, but I do feel like people are a bit over the top.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like if she were a pop star who were famous in the 80s or 90s, and this were her 19th album, we wouldn't really be paying attention to it. But if you were a diehard fan, you would listen to it and maybe you'd casually turn it on and be like, oh, hey, there's a couple songs I really like on Katy Perry's latest album.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and by the way, I think Lifetimes has really grown on me. I think it's now like a B+ single. It's again, not as good as something like Walking on Air that I really did love once upon a time, but it's not bad. I think the main problem with this album also is she herself, the vocal, does one thing from start to finish on this album. It feels very flat in terms of what she is delivering, and maybe it's lacking specifically in things like character and winking jokes, like things like outsized personality moments that we used to associate with Katy Perry. If anything, it feels like if you're gonna make pop music now, it still feels like a lightly resigned, I'm turning 40 maturity album.
Which is annoying because she is a singer.
Yes.
She can sing. She can belt. So you bring up Walking on Air, which has, that amazing sort of LaBouche sound to it. And then you think of a song that really sort of hit me and grew on me too. I'm his, he's mine. The Crystal Water sample. And that features Doechii. And it's sort of a ho-hum sample, but I enjoy the song quite a bit, even though it doesn't hit the heights of Walking on Air. I feel like if you're going to sample a house track, you need to be wailing, You need to give us something, a bit of a club banger. And I feel like that lane is really good for her, but she hasn't really ever leaned into it in a way that I feel like she should.
And I think what you're describing also, like, how that sample is a little bit limp. I think people would describe ultimately this whole album as just limping in a bit. In a way, it feels like an album you put out to get through a record deal. Like technically these are all pop songs and they're like competently written, but they could also kind of be sung by anybody. And that's, I think, the worst thing I can say about this album is it sort of feels like someone dropped off 11 tracks at her door. And she just said, she's like combing through them like, go, let's go, let's go. Even if they are sweet songs with some memorable hooks, like the song "Truth," not one of her best songs, still in my head a little bit,
Oh, that's actually my favorite on the album.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I love that. I really like "All the Love."
Good song.
I like "Gorgeous," but it's I like Aaron Joseph's work, and he produced a lot of the songs on this, and he's largely been a Kim Petras producer. And obviously some of these songs sound like they would probably be better if Kim Petras were singing them.
Well, let me just say also, Kim Petras has a lot of output we don't talk about either, and it feels like one of those albums. A little bit. You know, like one of these 7 albums she puts out in a given year, the one that's like, Slut Pop, Portland, Oregon, or the one you don't really listen to that much.
By the way, her Chainsmokers song is kind of a banger.
I agree. Also, unfortunately, I think the Chainsmokers have several bona fide pop classics.
Yeah.
Just in terms of can't get them out of your head. I'm not saying it was justified when they were at number 1 for 18 weeks or whenever that was.
Also, she's apparently bonafying one of them. So,
are you page 6? Who talks like this? You Variety in the 30s? Yeah.
Kim Petras steps out with the Chainsmokers. No, that's the Daily Mail. Listen, I think that the album is just sort of not deserving of the vitriol that it's getting. That's what I think the main conclusion that we're at here is, because, boy, the gays are ruthless.
Oh,
and
sure.
a little too ruthless with this, and it's sort of become like hunting Katy Perry for sport at this point. And it's okay. She's like, it's easy to make fun of her sometimes, but the jokes aren't that funny, and also the music isn't that bad for you to be dragging it like this.
I also just think she personally is not that bad. It's just like, what are we so upset at?
She killed a nun.
Yeah, right.
Who cares?
It was funny at
we
the time.
love Catholicism all of a sudden.
Yeah. I ran away from that. Stop putting me back there.
Did we all miss Spotlight?
That taught you something, including which pants silhouettes Rachel McAdams should avoid. No, I agree. I mean, like, again, the lowest score on Metacritic for 15 years. It's not that bad. I will say, though, it is weird about music. Like, I think most critics know that even if they're listening to an album they don't particularly like, there's an understanding that it'll probably be music for somebody else. That's kind of different than movies, where if it's a failure, like tells a story poorly, you can basically pretend it's objective and say, well, this is a failure. And so you're likelier to give something like that a 0-star rating. Whereas music, I feel like you rarely give a bomb rating to because it's for somebody, and there's less things you can mark against it. But I feel like what really leads to her being so poorly rated in this case is expectation. Like, okay, she has these banger albums, and we're on the precipice always of her kind of coming back. She's like never out of the game. She's still got American Idol, still making $20 million a year or whatever. So it feels like she's primed for a big comeback moment. And then when you don't get it, I think you want to turn the switch the other way and say, well, that sucks. We were anticipating something and didn't get it.
Well, I think part of it, too, is she is always preparing us for that. It's sort of always acting like this is the big moment, as opposed to, say, I don't know, Gwen Stefani is releasing an album soon, and like, who gives a fuck? If you're a Gwen Stefani fan who likes her current music, the Blake era, then it's probably for you. But if you're an old Gwen Stefani fan, if you love No Doubt, if you loved her first 2 albums, you're probably not going to even listen to it, right? But she is just sort of casually releasing music, and it's not really an event, right? But I feel like whenever Katy Perry drops a new album, there's always this huge rollout and this whole like, here's a new era, KP, whatever number this is, 7?
Something like that, yeah.
It's always a big event, and it's always this big promo, and then when the music doesn't match, the hullabaloo.
Right.
I can't believe I just said hullabaloo. But I couldn't come up with another word. When the music doesn't match the buzz, then I feel like that is what makes reviewers, at least, critics, a little angry with their pens.
Yeah, cynical.
But I do think that people are sort of rating this lower than they need to be rating it.
But speaking of which, the Gwen Stefani album, it is a little confusing because it's called Bouquet, and then she's holding one flower on the cover. Let's think about that for a moment. It's not the same thing. But if you look at the track listing, every 6 or 7 of the tracks have a different flower in them, so that's where the term bouquet comes from. And I have to say, I applaud a literal album concept. We rarely get those anymore. Like when Olivia Newton-John released the Physical album, and then all of the songs are called things like Tied Up or things involving physicality. Like, that's so old school showbiz, and I applaud that. So hopefully it'll be good. And I still like that Gwen Stefani song, Make Me Like You. So there's a chance she still got it.
Oh, I mean, that was a really great Target commercial.
Shot live at some award show for $15 million. It's one of the most expensive music videos ever made.
Take that, Michael.
Yeah, right.
All right, I think that's it with Katy Perry, to be honest. I'm streaming, so...
And again, if I
Shout out to
haven't
her.
said this before, Billboard is doing a list of the top 25 pop stars of the 21st century, and she came in at 25. She should be top 10. It's an obnoxious listing. She's behind so many people who aren't as significant in terms of radio airplay as she is. So that's my we love you anyway, Katy Perry sentiment of the day.
Where's Jelly Roll?
Still at the Emmys, still telling you it's okay to be dead.
Geared up for the Oscars. A duet between Jelly Roll and her.
Oh my God. I don't hate it. Actually, he seems kind of like a funny, nice guy.
Summer is over, which means it is time to put away the popcorn flicks, and it's time for Louis to stock up on Oscar movies and start his long winter hibernation.
I always forget. I dread summer being over, and then I realize, I actually now get the entertainment I want. God is looking out for me. You ever think of it that way?
First up is Cannes Best Screenplay winner, The Substance.
Weird choice. Sorry, screenplay? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it is a French film, and the French are kooky.
Right.
And they love themselves.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, it's like the BAFTAs when Helena Bonham Carter wins for The King's Speech. I'm like, girl, she just gave somebody a hug. You gave her a BAFTA for that?
So, did we find the film underwhelming, or will we be shouting, "Gimme Demi more"?
Wow, that was 3 puns? What's happening there? Okay. I'll say this. I avoided reading about this movie beforehand because people were because the buzz on this movie was just go see it, as opposed to look out for this thing or look out for this thing. So I went in not knowing much. I'm a little disappointed in this movie.
Oh, you are?
Yes, because I guess this actually does have to do with anticipation, because people said, it's 10 times more insane than Hereditary, and I don't agree with that. I think Hereditary is still a crazier movie, which that will be irrelevant to what I say in a second. I just feel like in terms of a body horror movie, we have kind of already seen this thing being obsessed with youthfulness, like male gaze, black swan, women versus women, self versus self stuff, handled with body horror. I felt like I had kind of seen this movie before.
I feel like that's the whole point of this movie, Louis. I feel like it is definitely living in a retrograde 90s sort of era. I mean, the idea of Demi Moore sort of being jealous of a younger woman in Hollywood. First of all, Demi Moore is hot as fuck.
She looks spectacular.
And leading a film, and sexy women in Hollywood at this point are sort of her age at this point. I feel like it is sort of a throwback to the 90s when it was, someone younger and hungrier is coming down the stairs. Very Showgirls, where a girl who's like 19 to 21 is going to come and steal your spot. I mean, the whole idea of her doing a jazzercise TV show is very retrograde. I feel like the whole thing is meant to be a throwback. So yeah. I didn't mind any of that.
Okay, I will also just explain the movie to people who want a synopsis and don't mind being spoiled a bit. But basically, Demi Moore is this woman who is in her 50s, I guess, hosting, as Ira said, a jazzercise-like TV show, very Jane Fonda
Elizabeth Sparkle.
Yeah, her name is Elizabeth Sparkle, and she is a one-time movie star and Oscar winner, according to this movie. And eventually, and she kind of has fans. It's this like TV extravaganza, and then she is canned, and they want somebody younger and prettier, and she encounters this stuff called the substance, which you can inject, and the rule is you'll get to be this younger, hotter version of yourself, or a person who's sort of connected to you, but you only get to do it for 7 days at a time, and then you have to switch bodies with that person and go back to your old self. So you only get 7 days of this young hotness before you go back to your regular self. And what happens is, and the younger self is, of course, played by Margaret Qualley, who I think is our leading Nepo baby at the moment, if I had to rank them all. Maya Hawke,
She's everywhere.
Notes. Yeah. I'd also one of those people where she still feels like a brand new star to me, and I've already seen her in 8 movies. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when Jessica Chastain was in those 30 movies in the 1 year, and she was suddenly a part of culture.
I also want to say that every time she's in a different movie, maybe this is just my, I feel like I recognize white people. I'm familiar with your game.
You're taking care. You got your handy dandy notebook. You're taking your notes.
I pick up what you put down.
Yeah.
But every time I'm watching her in a movie, I'm sort of like, huh? And then at the end, when it says Margaret Qualley in the credits, I'm like, oh, that was her.
Yeah. She also is somebody who I think is a really versatile actress, but doesn't really look like it when you're looking at her. You're like, oh, is she just being herself? But no, she does lots of sorts of different kooky things, in Poor Things, for example. But anyway, so there's Demi Moore and then this substance person who emerges, Margaret Qualley. And in the going back and forth, the Demi person gets more and more wretched, more and more resentful. She kind of hates the younger self for taking more of her time. And then the younger Margaret Qualley character starts abusing the substance, staying with the substance too long, which has reverberations. Anyway, it becomes this dual consciousness thing that plays out in terms of body horror later in the movie. I think also a problem, I agree, Ira, it's supposed to be a throwback in certain ways. I just felt like from the minute we see the words "the substance," I know the body horror we're getting. I know eventually this woman is going to be so decrepit, so doubled over, so a shell of her former self. And I think it's to the movie's credit that it's not going for nuance. They literally are like, the men are gross. This woman wants this one youthful potion thing, a la Death Becomes Her, and we're going to see how it plays out. That said, when it's as simple as a fairy tale or as simple as a Twilight Zone episode, I didn't feel like I got enough ingenuity otherwise to make it a thumbs up for me.
I feel like that third act gag, just throwing the spoiler a bit, I saw that it was going back to Demi getting a bit decrepit, but I was not seeing the bitch running back to the place and getting the accelerant again, the activation again, and then a new thing reemerging. That I was not expecting, and that I felt like that entire third act with, then the fun dream sequence and then the whole almost reverse Carrie was so much fun to me. And I thought that the movie was having so much fun in those moments, and it wasn't about logic, and you got those moments from the beginning, to be honest. I like that when Margaret Qualley is like, I don't want to look at Demi Moore lying on the carpet in the living room anymore. And she's just sort of like, you cut to her with a sledgehammer building a secret room in her bathroom. And it's no explanation of how she does this.
No, they just run right into fantasy. Yeah.
And it's great. Mm-hmm. And even the other part of the fantasy of Demi Moore having to climb down under this sort of garage door in this hidden sort of abandoned building to get the substance in the first place. I don't know. It felt so fun and goofy and cartoonish to me that I was on board the entire time.
I think the thing is, it does have these flourishes that are comical, but I felt like they were always just short of funny. It was like, just to play on, oh, isn't she desperate? This is a fairy tale gone awry. This is a Rumpelstiltskin-like curse.
The script isn't very funny.
Yeah.
The script isn't very... The situation are funny. I think the actors are funny. I think that the dialogue could have used a bit more of a pass, to be honest. I don't understand how it won Best Screenplay, but I am on board for the whole movie in general.
The awards conversation around this, people are saying, oh, I hope Demi Moore gets a Best Actress nomination. I don't really think this role is like that. Like, she is great in the... looks fabulous, is... great at the role, but it's not an emotional performance because the movie, again, is this purposely two-dimensional cartoon thing. I almost would compare it to Madonna in Evita, which is to say it's like one long music video. In fact, I think this movie would have been better as a music video or a short film or an episode of television. That's what I can say about this movie. But there's not enough real acting going on. It's a bunch of wearing, David Cronenberg-y, Rick Baker prosthetics ultimately.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of the cinema.
But True. But when you're comparing that to what I'm sure like Nicole Kidman brings in Baby Girl, there's just no comparison for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like this is sort of like The Fly, I think that like there's the whole point of like the pseudo music video and the thing of just like you seeing all these sort of bracing and fun images on screen. I mean, like, I think that's the whole point. Especially sort of like French cinema. And the director, Coralie Fargeat, she's just having a fucking good ass time. I don't know if you ever saw her film Revenge, the 2017 film.
Oh, my friends love that movie. I have not seen it.
Bonkers as hell.
And bonkers is important. And I will say, like, it's interesting to try to characterize this movie because horror is correct, but I think it's more accurate to call it a satire more than I would call it horror ultimately, because it's not going for jump scares. It's gruesome. It's funny and gruesome. Yeah,
she's down to clown. She's having a good time.
Right. Margaret Qualley also very good in the movie. Dennis Quaid, actually amusingly awful as the TV exec who's a monster and chewing shrimp in a very gross. If you have misophonia, that thing where you can't listen to people chew, don't watch this movie.
I also just loved the fact that they just kept calling for a while Margaret Qualley's new thing, New Show. That was funny to me.
Actually,
and then when she was on the talk show, The Show.
The funniest part of the movie to me is when she's filming this stupid show where she's just doing aerobics on television and it's zooming in on her ass. There's a part where the substance reacts and you see like something jolts out of her skin, and then the male producer is like, hold on, we need to watch that back. Someone saw something bizarre. Just that was funny. Like that play on like male gaziness, that almost ran into something a little innovative to me. But it sort of shied away from that ultimately. It was really just about I'm a woman in Hollywood and now I'm a mess.
I really, really enjoyed it. I felt like there were a bit more sort of maybe nuances that the film was missing. Obviously, there were, some things that maybe would have been thrown in to make it more logical, but the film wasn't really caring about logic, so who gives a fuck? But, case in point, there's a moment where she runs into, at the diner, someone else who's on the substance, and that's a helpful moment to sort of ground the film in the fact of, other people are using it. But my other question, too, was she's in Hollywood, right? Like, how much does this shit cost? And if you're in Hollywood and you're surrounded by these execs and these people watching the TV show, etc., right? If it is a metaphor for Ozempic and sort of like plastic surgery and sort of where our body and image culture is right now, right? Mm-hmm. Would there not be other people in the industry on the substance?
Yeah,
she's number 503.
That's true. Like it would be clear in a way to the other people in this movie what was going on. Like they play like it only is happening to her, the substance, or that there's a secret network of people who are like distributing this to her, but obviously it's not that secret. So yeah, that's just not something that's important to the movie, like these credibility gaps. But that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that's a completely different movie though. If there's like multiple people vanishing for weeks at a time,
Yeah.
But this is just focused on Demi, and for what it was, I had a really fucking good time. And will I see it again? I don't know.
Yeah. Here, one last problem with this movie. So the hot Margaret Qualley character becomes a rating sensation, and then she's told she gets to host the the New Year's special or whatever. And at that moment, I had an idea for a comedy beat, and I was like, I hope this happens. I wanted her to be a decrepit monster who then growls into the microphone, Happy New Year. But she didn't do it. They didn't do anything with the New Year's thing. I think that would have been funny.
Well, they tried.
Thank you. Yes. No, I mean, again, I appreciate the gusto. Fell short for me.
Really just made it more of a joke pass.
I think so too. Yeah. It wanted to be funny. It wanted to be funny.
It did. Because even the scene of there's a scene where Margaret Qualley has to run to the bathroom because she's having a substance reaction, and there's this hot guy that she's in bed with who gets up and goes to the bathroom, and it's just a very simple, are you having lady problems thing, and that scene could have been so much funnier.
Agreed. Right. Like that, they could have had 3 more jokes right there as opposed to that one sort of expected joke from the dumbass guy lingering.
The funniest running bit was the neighbor though.
Oh yes, and he played that really well. She has this pervy neighbor who sees her get hot, and then suddenly is stalking her, and but doing it happily. Like, she should be so happy that he's there.
Anyway, I think that it is definitely fucking worth seeing.
Yeah, come back and scream at me. You know how I love a little rowdiness in the comments.